Hello, I'm Ann Petrick, Vice President of Research for Vistage, and I'm happy to host the latest webinar in our Peak Performer webinar series. This series is designed to support your leadership climb by bringing the most trusted experts to the Vistage community, those experts who provide exceptional insight and best practices that help you navigate new challenges and opportunities. The Q3 Vistage CEO Confidence Index survey closed on Tuesday, so early analysis revealed that hiring and talent are still a top of mind challenge for small and mid sized businesses. 48% of our members plan to expand their workforce in the year ahead. And when asked about top leadership challenges, finding good leaders, finding qualified talent, finding the right people for the team are some of the top challenges you continue to face. And as we head into the last quarter of 2023, leaders need to be prepared not just to hire, but also keep the top talent that you have today. And that's why today we have invited Neha Rana. Neha is an HR expert with more than 15 years in the industry. As a performance specialist with our partner Insperity, she is dedicated to elevating employee performance and organizational culture. She's been recognized for her skills in leadership, strategic partnership, employee development, and cultivating innovation. Today, she'll share insights on your employment brand and can help you understand what workers want so you can refine your talent strategies accordingly. We're so happy to have you here, Neha. Welcome. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Ann. Thank you so much for having me here today. So let's get started. As you know, there is a lot that we don't know about the future. And that uncertainty is raising a lot of questions and anxiety. So unfortunately, the risk of the economic downturn does not change the fact that you still need to hire the right talent and keep your top talent, as Ann just mentioned. Whether you're a small business owner or the HR manager of a large corporation, the challenge remains the same. How do you build business resilience during a downturn, and how do you achieve success on the other side of it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we go into that, let's take a look at what our talent demographics are made of. There has been a shift in our demographics in the last few years. And while inflation is increasing, the number of job openings in the U.S. has actually dropped by 36% in the last couple of months. And the other trend that this is having on the marketplace is that it is becoming the employer's market again. People are changing the number of people that they're hiring, and they're also changing the packages that they are handing out. And this is across every industry across the board. We've also seen changes in terms of, since the pandemic, we have seen the Great Resignation, we have shifted then to the Great Retirement, to quiet quitters, and to now loud quitters. And along with that comes a new generation of workforce every few years as well, which brings its own sets of qualities, traits, and values. So for example, when the baby boomers entered the market, they were looking for job security. As the Gen X came into the market, they were looking for work-life balance and professional progress. And now we have the millennials and Gen Zs, and they are seeking everything from job security to professional progress, to compensation, to ethics, to flexibility. These are the distinctions that have an influence on how employees are interacted with and managed by their leaders. Currently, the baby boomers take up about 20% of the market. Your Generation X is at about 36%. Your millennials take up 40%. And then by 2030, we are going to see the Generation Z will come in at 30% of the workforce. And their fresh ideas on work and technology will impact our environment on a greater level. So what are our employees expecting from their employers? There has definitely been an increase in expectations. So I'm going to ask you first, using chat, what are you seeing in terms of what your employees are expecting from you and or the candidates or applicants that come to you in terms of your organization? I will repeat that. So using chat, what are you seeing in terms of what your employees are expecting from you or what your applicants are expecting from you?
I'm seeing a lot of flexibility, work-life balance or life-work balance. I know from our research that that is a top factor for employees, and that's almost replaced compensation. So the hybrid work arrangements and flexibility, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Those are all great answers. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, everyone, for sharing. So yes, despite the shift in power, the talent acquisition and management, really, those drivers remain the same among co-workers of all the differing generations. We really kind of want more of the same than different. We all want to contribute to the company's vision. We all want to be able to make a difference, and we all want to be valued. And there are a number of things that people expect at work from all generations. As you just mentioned, the flexibility, the hybrid, the work-life balance, but they also want leaders who are trustworthy. Everyone wants feedback, and everybody wants respect, and everybody also wants to learn and grow. We're going to visit these in further detail. One of the other shifts that we are seeing in today's market is in the traditional career arc. What used to be careers of advancement is now becoming the career of achievement. Growth and innovation really just doesn't come from the people with lofty titles, right? All individual contributors are having a great influence and making great contributions in the work that they do. So that is why the traditional career ladder is not as much important to the younger generations. What is really happening is that people are saying that they want to be heard, they want to be listened to, they want to be recognized, and they don't want the promotion that comes with it. They want that achievement to go along with those contributions and things that they are contributing. So when they are contributing and influencing and leading, those are more fulfilling to them than just a promotion. Because sometimes when they get promoted, it comes with more responsibilities, and some of them don't even really want that. We have a lot of ambitious people in the market out there, and they want to have that influence on the company, and they want to be that great contributor, and they want to build that followership. Next, we're going to talk about trust and transparency. Trust has always been a factor in what employees expect, no matter what generation that they are. And it is one of the most significant contributors to an organization's business success, right? So when employees trust their organization, that means they perceive them as being fair and dependable and competent. And when employees trust their company or their employer and their leaders, that means they will always go that extra mile. They will always produce more. They will be more engaged. Obviously, if they lack the trust, then that productivity and engagement is going to suffer. So what makes an employee trust their leaders and trust their organization? Well, that's basically comes from the top, right? It is about what they see, what they hear, right? It's the beliefs that are followed by the actions. So organizations really need to take the time to nurture their employees and also offer an environment where the employee feels psychologically safe. What does that mean? That means where they are able to take risks that is encouraged by the employees, that they can raise questions and concerns, provide their feedback without getting their hand slapped or fear of retaliation. So in order for them to feel psychologically safe to open up their ideas, right, this has to come from their leaders. Their leaders have to give employees some space and making sure that their leaders trust them to be empowered and take on projects. The other shift that we've seen and the trend is towards business transparency. You also want to share as much as you can about the current health of your organization. The more transparent you are, the more your trust your employees will earn. But transparency is just a means. It's not an end. Transparency can be a very powerful tool, right? So you want to share where your company is at, where it's going, how are we going to get there, how your employees can contribute to those results, right? It's not about giving them all the financial numbers and turning on a fire hose, right? You don't want to give them all the numbers. You want to give them the relevant information. So whether this is done through town halls or dashboard updates, or just from conversations in departments, you want to share where is your company focused on, how is it performing, where are we trying to go, how can your employees contribute to that? Because when your employees see that they are all working towards a common goal, they all become partners in your organization. The other shift that we're seeing is in cross-functional teams. Sometimes when we have large companies, they will find that different departments tend to become a little siloed, leading to duplication of work or even some interdepartmental conflict. Sometimes that lack of communication and knowledge sharing across the organization leads to a failure of being able to utilize all the resources available when it comes to working on company goals or department goals or projects. So that's we've seen the shift, and companies are harnessing the benefits of what we call cross-functional teams. These teams consist of members with different skill sets. They're grouped together on an ad hoc basis to tackle particular projects. And when you organize teams in this way, this creates a smaller pool of decision makers and allows the team to benefit from cross-departmental knowledge. And then really, you're combining the strengths of everyone, and it allows them to come up with more insightful and out-of-the-box ideas. And this allows businesses to stay agile, right, with the changing, especially with the changing market. And this will give your business a competitive edge. In the last few years, especially after the pandemic hit, we also saw a shift and focus on diversity. And first, it started with just a focus on diversity. But it's not enough just to focus on that. And diversity is definitely not like a one and done. It's not just one policy, and it's not just one training. Diversity has to be something that's throughout every process in the organization, every part of the employee life cycle. Organizations need to welcome and embrace diverse perspectives. So it's not only just promoting diversity, it's promoting inclusion and equity and belonging, and it's beyond words. Studies have shown that when you have a diverse group of people with different skills, backgrounds, and perspectives, they find better solutions to problems. They are more productive, they are more engaging than a homogeneous group of people who think alike. The other thing that we've seen a shift in is constant feedback. Feedback has always been one of the things that people have expected, but now feedback is becoming something that people want more often, not once or twice a year. As you know, the younger generations get immediate feedback through things from like reactions and emoticons, right? Everything that they do on their phones, they sometimes, get that automatic reaction. And as I mentioned, feedback is really important to every generation, but the desire for constant feedback is really associated with the younger generation. Employees want frequent, specific, meaningful feedback and to be part of those real ongoing conversations. And I know as leaders, sometimes you might feel that giving frequent feedback is a constant drain or a time on your energy. But really, if it's the habit of regular feedback, it's not confrontational. It's not formal, it's not stuffy. And even when you have to have those difficult conversations, those conversations become easier because again, it is just a conversation. It is talking about what's going on, how did you handle this, how can I support you? Tell me how you felt about that meeting, or getting their feedback as well. So you can supplement your formal meetings with just informal conversations through emails, texts, IMs, or peer-to-peer conversations. Not only does feedback make work more interesting, but it really reassures the employee that they are still moving forward, and it makes them be more productive when they're getting that feedback. Especially the younger generation, they are on a mission to constantly progress, level up if you feel. and they want that feedback in real time. So just like communication goes back, so does feedback. I'm going to ask you guys via chat, how many of you guys actually ask for feedback from your direct reports?
We have some varying responses. Some people frequently, some people not enough, and every one-to-one. And I think this was interesting. This was one thing that Kat Cole shared with us at our Women in Leadership conference a couple years ago, is that she asks, you know, what can I do to make your life easier? What can I do differently? So I think that's interesting. But it looks like about weekly is one of the top responses we're seeing right now.
Great. Thank you so much again for sharing. And thank you everyone for sharing that information as well. Yeah, feedback is very important, both to the employee and for yourself, right? We are human, we are leaders. We only also grow and develop with the feedback that we get from our employees. Another thing that job seekers are looking for today is they want choices, especially when they are sifting between multiple offers. And it's not just about the fun tools that you offer in your workplace. It's not about the ping pong tables and the happy hours, right? When it comes to choosing a workplace, employees want options to how and where they can work. As you heard earlier, flexibility is top of key. Those hybrid work environments are key when people are looking for work. And as more and more businesses offer the remote and hybrid options, you also need workplace collaboration tools to keep everyone engaged and connected. There are a lot of full-time professionals who consider their home as their primary place of work. And so there are many benefits to collaboration tools, including better organization and delegation of tasks, improving tracking of progress, and higher productivity. Remember, people want to feel belonged. They want to feel connected. And that was something when the pandemic hit that really a lot of people felt isolated and not connected to their teams. So you want to offer flexible workplaces. They are proven to help companies hire and retrain a world-class workforce, right? And this also boosts that employee productivity. So before you clean out those conference rooms and move in that ping pong table, find out what's going to be best for your employees and your organization. So some examples are, if you want to cultivate a creative and inspiring environment, make sure you have areas that have community tables or plenty of areas for people to collaborate in. And if you want to promote focus and productivity, make sure you still have people that can have their own desk or private huddle rooms or meeting rooms. But here's a tip. All the ping pong tables and the bean bags and the free beer in the world cannot make your employees stay with your organization if you've got bad leadership in place. So now that we kind of talked about what the expectations of the employees have, let's talk about what we need to do to retain them. As you know, your people are your greatest assets. We have to make sure that we have that workforce where our employees feel engaged and we are promoting the company and they are also promoting our company brand. Also, when you retain your employees, that's going to be more cost effective than having to replace them with new employees, right? Because turnover can cost you anywhere between 0.5 to 2 times someone's salary and even higher at the higher levels. So how do we retain those employees in this competitive market? Well, take care of the people that you have, right? If you take care of your employees, they are going to take care of your customers, right? Which is a win-win for both the company and the employees. Also, your employees need to feel valued and healthy. You will see a boost in engagement and collaboration and productivity when this occurs. You also want to make sure you develop and mentor your employees. Keep them feeling motivated. And you want to make sure they're rewarded and recognized for their contributions and their achievements. Usually when employees start feeling stagnant or not as challenged, they might start looking for opportunities elsewhere. And if you're not sure on how your employees are feeling, we just talked about taking feedback from them. And you can do that in those one-on-one settings or group settings, such as focus groups, or you can run a climate or engagement survey to get a pulse on what your employees are feeling. But make sure you are ready to act on those survey results and communicate those results and what you're going to do about those results. So let's look at all the retention strategies in a little bit more detail. So one of the ways to accelerate and retain your employees is to make sure that you offer both personal and professional development. This could be through online courses, virtual learning, lunch and learns, right? This gives people the opportunity to reconnect. Maybe start a mentorship program. Make sure you have a succession plan in place. Maybe offer some cross-training. That's another way for people to learn. This will provide employees with opportunities to learn new ideas, share their knowledge, and then that will make them feel that you are investing in them. And also invest in your employees through leadership and management training. One of the things here that we do at Insperity is we offer a program for emerging leaders called Leadership Academy. I'm actually one of the recent graduates of that program, and it was a very rewarding program, and it really truly made us feel that our company took the time to invest in us, which means we are going to invest that time back in our company. Especially the younger generations and millennials and Gen X and Gen Z, that they say the number one source of development is their leader. What they want most isn't about the direction, but more help with their own personal and professional development. People that we have seen from either survey results and people that we have talked to ourselves, I have heard them employees say, I would like to move ahead in my career. And that means I need to be in touch with my leader to do that. I need to be getting coaching and I need to be getting feedback so that I can become more efficient and proficient. Employees want to be inspired by their leaders, right? They want to be connected to a purpose and to the mission. That goes more than just telling them, hey, do this for the company or work on this goal. In addition, people want to be surrounded by other great people. It's another way that people learn from one another. So mix your people, the generations together, the different departments together, because you will get more ideas from them, and they will learn from each other. And lastly, they're going to be learning from you. So be authentic, be that role model that they can emulate. Tell your stories. How did you become a leader? What was your journey? You were human. You also made mistakes along the way. So share those as well so people feel like, oh, you know, it's okay because I can make a mistake and I know I can learn from that. And I have that support from my leader, and they're here to coach me and guide me so I can be successful. The best leaders are the ones who have, when you have best leaders that do that, those teams go on to greatness, and they are the ones who understand that coaching and development is an important distinction. Some of the other strategies on development that you can also implement is upskilling and mentoring. Upskilling is a new buzzword that has been going around. And what does this mean? It's the process of teaching your current employees with new skills. And this can benefit employers in numbers of ways. First, upskilling increases your employees' value to the company and sends a message that they have a place in your organization's future. Secondly, it's integral to succession planning and preparing your employees to move into those key roles when somebody leaves or somebody retires. And last, it helps attract new talent. Most job seekers prioritize professional growth opportunities in their search. Again, this is more of a priority than compensation. And when you upskill your current staff, again, this will reduce turnover and save money in your recruiting costs. Not only does upskilling benefit you as a company, but it also benefits your employees. It provides a number of benefits. One, such as it provides tenure by providing the incentive for employees to stay with your company. It also allows employees to discover their new talents and their new passions and abilities that they never knew that they had, leading them to new career paths in your organization. And last, it's an investment in their future that will be looked upon favorably by other employers should they eventually decide to leave the company. In addition to upskilling, you also want to implement what we call a mentoring program. That's also a method for learning and development for employees. This creates a strong learning culture, and it also enhances your employer brand, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. And this increases teamwork, leadership skills, and goal achievement and job satisfaction for everybody involved. And mentoring has the same benefits for both employees and employers as upskilling. Another way to retain talent is by providing opportunities for growth and development through career pathing. Your top performers need you as their advocate, and you need to ensure their visibility within the organization. So you need to be vocal in making their achievements and successes known. So make sure you celebrate those and give the credit to the employees and share that. You want to support the development and advancement of your employees, even if it means that you might lose them to another team. Leadership starts at the top through modeling behavior. So we need to look at our own engagement and our work dedication to provide a clear path and opportunities for our employees. This is what every generation is looking for. This survey was taken a few years ago by the Society of Human Resource Management. We talked about earlier that everybody wants flexibility, and people are willing to take a salary reduction in return of this flexibility. So the different generations appreciate different aspects of the remote work lifestyle, and they're going to look at different things when they're looking at the future employment. Let's start with our baby boomers. Baby boomers are usually the more traditional in how they work, right? They entered the workforce when you had to be in the office 5 days a week, and people picked up the phone and called each other. But they also want and need flexible work. Some of them want to slow down, but they're not quite ready for retirement, especially with inflation. And a flexible job is the between step for them. As you know, maybe the baby boomers are probably caring for either an aging parent or two, or even spouses, and they need that time to attend to their family demands without having fear of losing their job. Your Generation X, they entered the workforce at a time when email and the internet was becoming more available. They also helped create that shift to the remote work, but they are kind of still stuck in the middle these days. While they are moving into more senior roles as the baby boomers retire, they are that middle generation. And so they also have children at home that might not be fully independent, that they need support, as well as aging family members that need assistance. So they too are looking for that flexibility. Your millennials, they entered the workforce during the Great Recession and its aftermath. So their work choices have been shaped by those events. So they value stability, but they also, again, place a premium on flexibility. They're used to being connected 24/7, 365. And so they don't mind sometimes answering those texts and emails outside of the workday. But they also want and need those boundaries between work and home, and to be able to have that ability to work when it's most convenient for them. And then your Generation Z, they also value that workplace flexibility. This is probably the number one benefit that they're looking for, in addition to work-life balance. They're also used to asynchronous communication. Much of their communication is via text, and they live a lot of their life online. But in the wake of the pandemic, the opposite is also true. They still value that face-to-face interaction, but they just want the freedom to be able to come into the office and work remotely when they can. So really, what is the right environment for you and your organization or your teams? You really want flexibility for diversity, basically. You want to make sure you have diverse offerings and diverse teams. When you offer flexible work opportunities that will appeal to all candidates from all generations, this is going to lead to a more inclusive workforce, and your employees will stay for the long haul. All right, adding talent. So while retaining talent is critical, that's only part of the story. As you just heard Anne share, that there are still 48% of businesses that are expecting to grow in the next year. So you need to find the top talent who's going to take your business to that next level. So how do we attract that right kind of talent? Well, that's going to require taking a closer look at your company culture, your recruiting tactics, and your hiring processes. You want to get the right people in the right seats, right? And this should be essential to your overall business plan. And really, your recruiting strategy kind of begins way before you even open up that strategy. So take a look at what your business goals are for the next 1 to 5 years. What is the growth trajectory? What positions are you going to be supporting? and what is the goal that your workforce needs. Before I share some of the talent strategies for attraction, what are some things using chat that you do to attract top quality employees?
While our participants are writing in what they do for attracting top talent, last year our research showed that adjusting compensation was one of the top things, but we also saw that leadership development, interestingly, was one of the top things that they were doing. And whether that is to attract skilled managers or attracting having a great environment, a great culture, and reinforcing their culture with great leaders. We found that our research found that as well.
Great, thank you so much, Anne.
Now we're seeing culture.
Yeah.
Competitive benefits are still a big thing. I'm curious if anyone's doing a wellness program.
Yeah.
Yes, an employee assistance program. Yeah. Mental health is a real big focus, I understand, for some of the younger generations in the workforce.
Absolutely. All great strategies and all very, very important to today's workforce. And again, it's true for every generation. All those things are important. Let's talk about those. So today's best practices are really focused on what businesses have to offer, and it's that company culture, and it's the values, and it's the mission. It's more than that paycheck. People want fulfilling careers, right? And they want to know that they are tied to the organization's purpose. So here are some steps that you can do to attract talent. You want to make sure you develop your reputation, right? We all know people talk, and people will write those Glassdoor reviews. And if one experience is bad, it is out there. And you can have 100 good experiences out there, but what's going to get shared is that bad experience. So top applicants are looking for companies who care about their employees. Give them those tools and resources that they need to be successful in their jobs. And the company values are not just something that are written on a wall. Those company values are seen in action from top down. So that is what sets you apart, and that's what is part of your brand. So make sure you do some research within your company. As I mentioned, doing a pulse check and conducting those employee surveys, finding out what your employees think about your organization is valuable for you to be able to make those changes. You can also perform a competitive analysis or market survey to see what the drivers are in the job market so you can better understand what to highlight in your organization. Making sure you also can connect via social media, correct? All the younger generations, that's where they are connected. That's where they are looking. They're on all the different social networks, job boards. So making sure that you are displayed there with your brand and with your values. And then make sure you can make it accessible via mobile, because a lot of people are all on their phones today versus their computers. So make sure your career site is mobile friendly. All right, so let's talk about that company brand. So why should someone work for you versus your competitor? You want to make sure that you spell out a statement that really shows your values and your culture. So you want to start with an outline of your company's core values as described by your leadership team. Just like you want to know what makes that applicant special when they come to you for that interview, you want to make sure you can outline what makes you special, right? Why should they even apply for your organization? So you can share that and highlight that, again, through social media, through your website, and through multiple different ways. But when you share that information, make sure you're authentic, because people are going to find out about you. So beat them to the punch. So from social media to the website, make sure you tell people exactly who you are, what your organization stands for, what is important to your organization. And then make sure you share your employee testimonials. Describe the kind of people that you're looking for and why your people work for you and stay at your organization. So those are some of the things that you can do to define your employment brand. And now I'm going to test your knowledge. Before you start responding, please answer true or false to the following 3 statements. However, I'm going to give you a quick tip. The same answer is correct for all 3 statements. So you only have to type in either true or false. Using chat, type in your answers.
Excellent. Overwhelmingly, everyone believes these statements to be true.
Yay, round of applause for everyone. Congratulations. You definitely understand the importance of having the employment brand for your organization. So thank you. And thank you for humoring me. All right. One other thing that you want to do with your candidates is you want better candidates, right? You want quality candidates. So how do you do that? I mentioned earlier that obviously it can be very costly to replace your employees, anywhere from 0.5 to 2 times their salary. So when you look at your recruiting plan, you want to include these 3 things. You need to have a comprehensive job description. When was the last time you looked at that job description? Maybe those job descriptions are outdated. So if you know someone is leaving your organization, or let's say they've already left, but work with that hiring manager. Update that job description. Is it still relevant? Does it include the right qualifications, the right responsibilities, and the right competencies that you need to fill this role, right? Because roles have changed and evolved. So if you had someone in the position, even for 2 or 3 years, that role has already changed. So update those job descriptions. And then you also want to conduct pre-employment screening. Make sure you get the facts by verifying people's education, their employment history, their certificates, and so forth. And then make sure you go beyond the surface of the interview. Do those pre-screens, but make sure you ask people what are their career goals, and then make sure that they're going to fit with your company culture. So why is recruiting important? The recruiting process is going to have an impression on your job candidates, right? How you differentiate your company and what it offers, how it treats them from that very first phone call is what's going to leave that lasting impression. So make sure you roll out that red carpet for that candidate, even if you don't end up hiring them. Maybe somewhere down the line, you might have another role and they are that right fit. You don't want to leave a bad reputation where they don't come back to your organization. So make sure some of the things that you offer in that recruiting process is ease of application, right? You don't want to make them jump through hoops to fill out that application. And you want to make sure you communicate with them in a timely manner. So if someone had a pre-screen on the phone, make sure you tell them what they can expect, what the next steps are. And if you're not going to move on with an interview with them, send that letter to them in a timely manner. And then also maybe offer an applicant tracking system. Again, as I mentioned, it might not be the best fit this time around, but having a good job candidate for an opportunity down the line, they might fit into that role. So you want to be able to look through your system to say, hey, you know what, I remember this person had these qualifications. Let's try and bring them in for this position. That'll also save you money in your recruiting the next time around. Now let's talk about that interview process. There are definitely a lot of do's and don'ts, and I could probably spend a half an hour just talking about the interviewing tips, but we don't have that kind of time. So just in general, these are a few tips to remember. You want to make sure you also ask that applicant, what can you tell me about our company, right? You want to make sure not only that you've done your homework, but they've done their homework. Why do they want to come and work for you? And then don't spend too much time going over the resumes in the interview. Remember, you want to get insight in addition to their career goals and personality and making sure they're going to fit into your culture. you want to make sure that they have the right skill sets and competencies for you for this position. Make sure you feel the candidates feel comfortable, build that relationship with them, and leave time for questions after you've asked all your questions. We have a couple of examples of what types of interview questions to ask. You want to make sure that you ask what we call behavioral type interviewing questions, because those are going to give you that deeper insight into the candidates, their personalities and capabilities. So instead of asking hypothetical questions or, have you done this, yes or no type of questions, you want to ask open-ended questions. Here are some examples. Describe the situation when you worked with someone you didn't like or respect. How did you cope, right? What did you do? You want real scenario answers on what they did in that entire process. Another example could be, tell me about a situation where you had numerous demands on your time. How did you resolve it? How did you get through it? Or tell me about the most difficult customer you had. How did you deal with that? How did you handle the situation? What was the outcome? And as people respond to you, you want to look for that situation or task that they're explaining. You want to look for the action that they took, and you want to know what the results were. What kind of impact did that have? So these are just a few examples of some of the behavioral type interviewing questions that will let you dig deeper. And you can also use that STAR method when it comes to giving feedback to your employees as well. All right. Now let's say you're at the end of your interview process and you have two outstanding job candidates. One has great skills, but the other one seems like a better fit for your organization. How do you decide? Well, really, the person who's going to be the hiring manager or training the new employee should be able to answer the following questions. Where are you willing to compromise? How much are you willing to teach? Which candidate would be easier for you to train? So basing your decision on these answers means better hiring decisions. If your candidate doesn't match or mesh with your culture, it's not going to be easy to change them. Most people are usually set in their ways, but people can pick up skills and be trained on new skills if you take the time to invest and train them. And remember, a bad hire will cost more in dollars and cents. So this brings me to my final thought for all of you. Think about all of this through the lens of what you are doing today. What are you doing now that works? What can you change to prepare to meet the possibilities of the future? How do you match up? How can you attract the people you need today? How can you motivate and keep them for tomorrow, right? How does your organization need to change today? How will your organization need to evolve to stay competitive? By thinking about the future and taking even small steps to plan now, you can face the future of work with a greater sense of confidence. So let's face it, people are your business, and they are at the heart of what makes your company successful, right? When you invest and take care of employees, you get the right people, you experience increased profitability and performance and productivity. These are the three essential things to a successful business. Take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers. It's a win-win. Also remember, across generations, even though there are some similarities, but every person, it's not a one-size-shoe-fits-all. People are motivated differently. People want to be recognized differently. People communicate differently. Just ask your employees and they will tell you how they want to be motivated, how they want to be recognized, how they want their feedback, how often they want their feedback, right? Just ask your employees. All right, so I want to thank you for your time today. But my last question for you before we open up to the questions that you have entered, what are some key takeaways from today's presentation? If you can use chat, that would be great.
As people are entering that, I really like the fact that you brought in the generational differences. I heard a speaker about that, earlier this week, and really thinking about the fact that, I'm a Gen Xer and I rely on email more than anything else versus someone else who might prefer Slack versus someone else who might prefer, different things. So, understanding those communication preferences. I learned that if you put periods in text, it has a different connotation, things like that. So I really liked that. And Teresa, one of our attendees, also liked the generational conversation.
Great, thank you.
And thank you to our attendees for participating. Some of your comments and have inspired some questions from me as well. Okay, Laura Polo said employment brand. And yes, we will share the slide deck and the recording within 24 hours. So you will have all of these insights that were shared today. All right, should we move into the Q&A? Perfect. All right, so I'll remind everyone that you can submit questions. I have a few of my own. Early on when you asked about what employees want, and one of our attendees today said promotions, right? And understanding that idea of career pathing, which I think is really important. And you spoke to that later. But to me, that's the intersection of development and compensation. So when you can tell someone how they can grow within their current role or what the next step is and the compensation within both, not only are you investing in their development to get them there, but you're also investing in their ability to earn more as well. How have you seen companies successfully do this?
So a lot of companies, and I'm not saying that the traditional promotion or career ladder is like irrelevant, but what we're saying is like some companies, what they're doing is kind of giving in positions like different levels. So as they accomplish something or become a trainer or become a subject matter expert or a mentor, there's rewards with that from a compensation standpoint, and like what we call maybe a level change. So this person could be a human resource specialist level 3, right? Based on their experience, what they bring to the table, what they contribute, how they are influencing and making that change. So that's what we talk about, and a shift that we've been seeing.
Okay. And then is it like there a clear path between how you get to number 4? Like these are the skills you need to master or the results you need to impact?
Absolutely, right. Because you have to have a distinguishment between the levels, and sometimes it's different competencies or just different goals that you've achieved. And sometimes it's even through certificates that you complete for your own in your own development, right? So sometimes I know here at Insperity, like if someone gets their certification, that comes with an added extra compensation.
Okay. Yeah, rewarding them for their own efforts that they take upon themselves. Yeah, I was curious about that because career pathing feels like you're being very mindful of the employee and where they want to go. And then, and that could be lateral versus succession planning is more company driven and focused on how you move people up. Are they different in your mind? Career pathing versus succession planning? Okay.
Yeah, because career pathing, people can move in all different directions, right? They can move laterally, they can move up, they can, or just cross-functionally. But succession planning is really more about being prepared for the unknown, right? We know things happen. It's unfortunate that tragedy strikes, and we've seen that in the last few years. So you need to be prepared, right? Because if you have a critical member of the organization, something happens, or they just up and leave, who's about to take that next step? So succession planning is really more about developing people for those roles where you can't afford to have a 3-month gap before that position is filled.
Yeah. We have a question. How do you look at advancement? You explain the cross-departmental teams. How do you do an advancement in that situation?
So, I mean, sometimes, like, as I mentioned, you can have people who move laterally, right? And that still can come with a distinguished compensation because it's a different job that they're going to be performing or a different skill set that they have. So they can move from one department to another. And cross-training is kind of different when you're doing that just to do that. That is kind of done for that succession planning, right? Building other people's skills so that they're ready and sharing that knowledge. Whereas moving laterally is a little bit different. So those are kind of like two different things. Did I answer that question?
I think so. Well,
okay.
All right, so going to mentoring, you mentioned, and I just looking at the generations in the workforce, I think we always used to think of mentoring as I'm matched with someone who's much older or much more experienced. But have you seen companies do reverse mentoring, where there's give and take? So some of the younger generations, some of the younger employees are actually mentoring people who are more tenured, just to help them, build skills in different areas that, if we're not digital natives, for example.
I haven't really come across the reverse mentoring, but when I think of mentoring, I mean, you're not really just pairing somebody up. You don't have to pair somebody up with 10 years of experience, right? You can mentor people at any level. Someone could have only been with the organization for 2 years per se, and they already have a lot to bring because they have other differences and perspectives that they bring either from other employers that they've worked in, or things that they've already learned in a short time. So mentoring can be, it's not like a newcomer and, somebody who's been with the organization for 25 years. Mentoring can be even by peers. It can be cross-functionally. It could be leaders in other parts of the organization. It doesn't have to even be your same leader who mentors you.
Excellent. Yes, I've heard more about reverse mentoring and the idea that I could learn ChatGPT from someone who just jumps on it right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think and just because you're paired up with someone, that mentoring opportunities for both people could learn from each other, right? Everyone has something to offer.
Yes. So then moving into, you mentioned tech and tools in the context of employees having those, some good tools, and that is a competitive advantage and helps with productivity. But in terms of acquisition, are there any new tech tools or digital applications that small and mid-sized businesses should be using for acquisition?
That is a little out of my subject matter expertise. I'd be happy to look into that and get back to be able to answer that question for them. I'm not the tech savvy person, and I'm not really versed with acquisitions.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. Well, I know that we have some of our members who are talking about how they're using ChatGPT just for like you mentioned, writing job descriptions or comparing candidates, having a filter to be able to look at that as well. So that's something that we have our eye on, and we'll continue to bring to our community how ChatGPT can be used in hiring and some of the advantages there.
Perfect.
Now you did,
Thank you.
Yeah. We hear a lot of buzzwords, right? Like the quiet quitters and now the loud laborers. And, the loud laborers can be disruptive, especially to the culture. Those are the people you would identify as being toxic. So what are the best ways to manage those employees? Because in some cases, the loud laborers are staying, and in some cases, they're just being loud on the way out. So if they're the loud laborers who are in your organization and really creating a lot of turmoil, how do you suggest addressing those?
You know what? As soon as you hear something, do something. Pull that employee in and talk to them. Chances are something is going on that we are not aware of, that might be causing them to react. Someone could have said something to them. Someone might have treated them some way. There's some root cause to that. And to nip it in the bud as quickly as possible, as soon as you hear it, pull them in and have that conversation and just say, hey, we've noticed X, Y, and Z. Please help me understand what is going on. I want to be here to help support you. So if something happened, I want to be able to, help resolve this matter for you. So pull them in as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Thank you. And there's still time. We can take a couple more questions, but I really love the idea that leadership development plays a big role in retention, not just of those people, the leaders themselves, but of the people who benefit, their teams that benefit from their development. Do you have any statistics on the ROI of retaining an employee or keeping an employee from leadership development?
I don't have statistics on that, but I do know that, I don't know the exact stats on that, but I know when you invest in your employees, that they will stay with you. And even some people are afraid because they feel like, oh, well, if I develop them and, do this, but we may not have that position in our organization to move them into that. And now we're not going to, reap from those benefits, but you are, because as they're developing in your organizations that are applying what they're learning and they're bringing those tables. And yes, you may lose them to another organization, but they're going to go to another organization like, you know what, my old employer took the time to invest in me. And let's say in a few years, you now have that opportunity for them. They're going to come back. So even if you don't have, many people think that I need to have positions for my employees to grow in order to develop them. Well, that's not true. It's benefits for both the employee and the organization, whether they stay or not.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great nugget. All right. So last question. You've talked about values and the employment brand is really promoting your values. How have you seen companies differentiate like their values or define them in the context of their organization? Because I imagine there's a lot of values that are pretty common across many organizations. So how do you make yours really personal and come to life?
By making it relatable to your organization, right? Being specific and kind of putting out. I mean, yes, if you talk about teamwork or integrity, some of those definitions are, pretty similar across the board. But you can talk more to that and what it really truly means in your organization when you're defining those. So talk about, what that means to your bottom line, to your employees, to, a lot of people put, customers, top of choice as their value, but your customers are your employees and they're both internal and external. So making that top of light is very, very important, and that distinguish. I've had companies where I've worked with my clients who had values, and they were just out there, and they were started 20 years ago by somebody, and nothing was ever done with that. And we bring them to life by having the employees define what those values mean to them. And they define what the behaviors look like based on the things that they've seen in their organization. And then they make it part of their entire culture and employee life cycle. So those values are important from the onboarding to the offboarding. And you see it, throughout, and that's what makes it more meaningful.
Thank you. Well, what a great note to end on. So thank you so much, Neha, for sharing your insights, and for our attendees and being here today. As I mentioned, we'll be sending a link to today's recording and the slides within 24 hours. So great takeaways. And Neha, you mentioned psychological safety and trust and how that's important. And that was something that was covered in my conversation with Adam Grant, who is for our Vistage members, is an Vistage exclusive available to watch through November 25th. So I encourage you to watch this, to discuss in your groups or with your leadership teams. And then for all of our attendees, artificial intelligence has been a hot topic. And we have a webinar next Friday, September 29th. It's our Artificial Intelligence Roundtable. We've invited 3 Vistage members who are early adopters, who have some practices and results of how they're using AI in their business. So this gives you the opportunity to learn from some of your fellow members or fellow CEOs. So you can register for that session at vistage.com/webinar. That's vistage.com/webinar. Of course, we all have some great webinars on demand, including our Vistage Speaker of the Year, Robert Cujo Teschner, who spoke about how to de-weaponize accountability. Thought that was fantastic. And then Hillel Presser shared details on how to protect your assets. So some upcoming sessions, some on-demand sessions for you to help expand your perspective. So thank you so much for being here today. Be safe and be well.